Hey, what's up guys? This is Ari in the Air. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. I am just exhausted after a couple big days of flying. The first of which, I got really tall, over 13,300 feet, and ended up flying 133 kilometers in just over 3 hours. It was really windy, and it was a pretty rowdy flight, but I went super far, farther than I've ever been on my PR. And during the flight, I thought to myself, man, there are some things that I'm so glad that I know now that make it so much easier. And I thought that I would share those things with you in a couple of videos. This one will be thermaling tips for beginners. And I have just a couple of them, but I think they're really foundational. Okay, so subscribe to my channel. Let's get to it. Okay, so I've got 4 tips for you today. The first of which is our lift threshold. So if you launch off of the hill into thermic conditions and you hear your vario go beep beep and you try to turn around in that immediately, then, well, you're probably chasing ghosts. Our gliders will find a little bit of lift here and a little bit of lift there, and it can be seemingly very sporadic. So we want to have some kind of threshold of lift that helps us understand when we should turn, what is worth turning around for, and what is just an anomaly, what is just a little bubble of lift that we can just fly right through. So typically I will tell my students that if you fly into lift, you should probably try to take a 4 count. If you can fly into lift and you hear beep, 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 and you can count to 4 while flying into that, then that means that you've flown through 4 seconds of lift, and that's probably a decent climb, right? At that point, you also know that if you turn around, that the lift that you just flew through 4 seconds is behind you. So you definitely want to wait when you feel your glider rock back and you start hearing noise from your vario, that you want to wait for a minute to make sure that you're actually in a thermal and you're not just in a little bubble, you're not just in a little bit of increased wind, and you actually have found something that's worth turning into, right? The second thing is our turn radius. So after you have counted to 4, then how quickly do you want to turn around in that thermal? Well, it's going to differ all the time, but a good rule of thumb is Kelly Farina's 4 for 90. He says that your 90-degree turn should take 4 seconds, making a complete 360 take 16 seconds. That's a good rule of thumb, especially for beginners to understand that you should probably turn slower than you think, right? Maybe that's faster than you think. Sometimes people really want to hammer the brakes and other students really want to turn super light and gentle and kind of fly around the edges of the thermal. But the 4 for 90 is a good rule of thumb. There are some times where I will either increase or decrease my turn time from there. Say if I find myself in a big parking lot thermal and it's really wide and really smooth, I will just merely weight shift with a little bit of brake and I will just let myself very slowly go around in huge circles and hearing that vario steadily beep. I'll just stay in that, okay? There's other times where, say I'm in the thermal and I'm already in my circles and I'm hearing steady beep, 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 and then the rate of the vario increases drastically and I feel the core of the thermal beep, 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 then I'll really pull on the brake a lot, more weight shift, and I'll try to tighten up my circle a lot to stay right in the core there. Those are just some instances where I would use more or less brake, but the 4 for 90 is a really good place to start. The third thing is speed or pitch control. So experienced pilots will talk about how they want to just keep the speed that they're flying the same all day long. So if your glider pitches back and slows down, you want to go hands up. And then as it comes overhead, you want to use the brakes to slow it down. And as it turns, you never turn too sharp to make it dive. And when you come out of the turn, you never let it swing so hard that you pendulum up. You really just want to use your brakes and your weight as a dampener for the glider to just continue the same speed all day long. You never let it go too far back. You never let it shoot too far in front of you. You never pull on the brake too hard to make it dive down into a spiraling turn. And when you come out of a turn, you never let off so drastically that you swing up out of it. Okay? It's also the same with turbulence and the bumpiness of the thermal itself. You really just want to dampen all the inputs that the air pushes on the glider and really try to stay under the glider for the most part and manage the speed of the glider. If you really are doing it poorly and the glider is pitching forward and back, you're going to lose a lot of altitude and a lot of energy out of the system, as well as your vario is going to sound very inconsistent, because obviously as you swing under the glider, your vario is sinking, so it will stop making noise. And then as you swing up, the vario will beep, 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 like you're in lift when you're not actually in lift, you're just pendulum under the glider. So controlling your pendulum, controlling your pitch, controlling the speed, that's all the same thing. And that's a really, really important thing to master thermaling. Okay, the last tip I have for you is fly the thermal, not the hill, not your expectation of the thermal, but fly the actual thermal. So when I was learning, I would fly out and I would have a mental construct of what the thermal would be doing, that it would be coming up the face of the hill. So I would kind of fly where I thought the thermal would be going. But what I needed to be doing actually was being more observant and just observe where the thermal actually is and only fly right there. So if the thermal starts doing something that you didn't expect it to do, just go with what you're observing, fly where the thermal is, where you're getting the beeps, and not where you expect the thermal to be. The difference between you and a professional paraglide pilot is not that he knows so much more about where the thermals will go. He pretty much has the same base knowledge that you do. He has a lot more experience, but he is exponentially more observant than you are. And he's willing to have a very plastic understanding of what the thermal is doing and let himself be wrong when he assumes where the thermal will trigger, where it will go, where it will bend, and he will just fly the thermal for what it is and where it is. He'll use his vario, he'll use the feeling of the glider, and he will just observe where it is and he will just follow that instead of trying to fly the mental construct of the thermal. The reality is that thermals do all kinds of weird shit that you can't ever know what it's going to do. Sometimes they bend over and become flat little saucer pancakes only to then release straight up in perfect smooth climbs. Sometimes they bend one way, then the other way, then the other way. There are just myriad things that the thermal can do, so your best bet to use it to get yourself in the sky is just observe it and fly it for what it is. I hope this helps you. Remember, if you're looking for a new glider, harness, reserve, something like that, email me, airyintheair@gmail.com. I've got everything from A's to D's. Also, I still have those student packages available. One is an E&A package with a Gradient Bright 5, a Supair Access harness, and a new reserve, all for only $3,500 US, which is pretty damn cheap. The E&B package is a Gradient Golden 5 with an Ulti-Rondo or an EvoLite from Supair with a Shine lightweight reserve. That's only 4,000 US bucks. These are great prices. We hardly make any money on these. So if you're trying to get into the sport or want a new E&B package, let me know, airyintheair@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next episode.